There's this show called Bad Vegan I started to watch, and I'm only halfway through it, but it is a very strange story. It's basically about narcissistic abuse. The way that this documentary is being presented is making you question who the actual abuser and the victim is. From a truther perspective, I do not believe this story is real for a number of reasons. First of all, it's in the public eye. Second, her phone calls are all recorded, just happen to be recorded. Their entire relationship is broadcast on Twitter, which is a very strange thing to be doing. Most normal people do not share their relationship on Twitter. However, for the purpose of this recording, I'm going to assume that this story is true and that these things actually happened. I do think that this story is important in identifying narcissists, narcissistic abuse, manipulators, con men, liars, fakers, this sort of thing, because there is a rise in awareness around narcissists. Most real living beings, real truthers, have encountered narcissists and have been subject to narcissist abuse. And I'm not talking about people with narcissistic tendencies or narcissistic traits. We all have narcissistic traits. If triggered, they will come out. And this is why it is very difficult for people to identify narcissists, not just because everyone has narcissistic traits, and if someone is provoked, they will be provoked to anger and defend themselves. And especially when narcissists are crazy making and the victim acts out, it can look, from an outside perspective, it can look as if the victim is the narcissist, because that's what the narcissist wants. So the whole dynamic is crazy making. The whole dynamic is so difficult to wrap your head around that the victim could even start to think that they are the narcissist. However, if the victim is questioning, am I the narcissist? That in itself tells you you are not the narcissist, because a narcissist would never ask that question. I recommend going to HG Tudor's channel for more information about narcissists, because he explicitly lays out all the terms on the spectrum of narcissistic personality disorder, ranging from lesser to greater to ultra, which he proclaims that he is, and the mid-range, which is harder to detect. And mid-range is generally the more passive-aggressive narcissist, and they will generally pass themselves off as altruistic, a good person, a spiritual person. They will give to charity. They will try to make themselves look good in society, and yet behind the scenes they are lacking in empathy. They are hurtful, spiteful, resentful, angry, and all they care about is their image. I have been doing a lot of research on narcissists, understanding not just generally what a narcissist is or how they behave, but understanding that there are different types, how to detect them, and how to guard against it. As soon as you identify someone as being a narcissist, the best thing you can do is just leave, because there's nothing you can do to help them. And it is not your job to help them. Narcissists are manipulative, selfish, they use people, they have no empathy, they hate you, they don't care about you or what what they are doing to you and how what they do to you affects you, because you are not a person to them. You are not separate from them. They see you as a possession, that you belong to them, and they will get possessive and angry and lash out. On the other end of the spectrum, just so you're aware, there are narcissists and then there are empaths, and typically they are drawn to one another. The narcissist will feed the empath a lot of energy and attention, and likewise the empath will feed the narcissist energy and attention. And the narcissist's role in your spiritual awakening is to trigger your wounds so you can heal. Then there are what are called the normals, who are kind of equally balanced. I think most people in this world have issues. Most people kind of assume you know what a normal is. I don't think it should be assumed. The story centers around this woman named Sarma Melngalis. She went to business school. She went to work in finance, but realized that she was more interested in food, so she pursued a career in cooking and was interested in this man who was a celebrity chef. So out of nowhere, she applies for a job to help him write a cookbook, gets the job, and then they get into a situation where this guy is bad with money, has a reputation for being bad with money, but he contacts the investor and says, I can't work with her anymore. Their marriage is on the rocks. And he says, you have to decide who's going to continue running the restaurant. And the investor chooses Sarma because she's more responsible with money. She had a better relationship with everybody at the restaurant. So she was bought out, but she was left with $2 million debt on this restaurant. She had formed a relationship or friendship with Alec Baldwin, who used to come into her restaurant. And this is another reason why I think this restaurant story is fake, because celebrities came and went from her restaurant like nothing. Like it was the hottest restaurant in the world, and celebrities ate there all the time, raved about it, praised it. She was in the media talking about her restaurant. She was all over the TV. So she became a celebrity because of her restaurant, and yet she was $2 million in the hole. So her friendship with Alec Baldwin, I mean, first of all, Alec Baldwin, he is a known wife abuser. His issues with Kim Basinger are well publicized, and that in itself is a big red flag. And this is pre the shooting on set. She sees this guy interacting with him on Twitter and thinks he's funny, and somehow they manage to meet online. Not exactly sure how they connected, but she started talking to him online. She alleges that she fell in love with him super quickly before they even met. He seemed to know things about her. I guess he did a lot of research on her because she was famous, knew her weak points. She had a dog that she loved. She named her dog after this character on a story about a hitman with a young girl. And so he basically modeled this story about himself on this movie. So he played right into her weaknesses, right into her vulnerabilities, right into her desires, and gave her this fantasy story about who he was, and fed her exactly what she wanted to hear. She was in the hole. She was freaking out. She probably wanted escape. She was probably fixated on, I just want to escape. I want out of my problems. I want to escape. because she was terrified. She could lose her restaurant. She could lose her reputation. Everything she worked for could go down the drain. And so she manifested this guy. And she put all of her energies secretly into this relationship with this guy who she didn't really like, but he was sort of charming and dazzling and kind of weaseled his way into her heart, and she fell in love with him and fell in love with this story that he told her. They ended up meeting, and right off the bat, he didn't look the way that he portrayed himself in the pictures. He was overweight, and he portrayed himself as thin and fit. And when she met him, she was confused why the pictures don't match up. So right off the bat, he lied to her. He misrepresented himself, and he lied to her. I guess basically pressured by society's need to conform, she didn't want to be judgmental about it or superficial about it, so she excused it. But what she was not, it wasn't his weight that she was excusing the lie. There's a big difference. He had obviously manipulated her, lied to her, and now he was playing on her empathetic qualities of not wanting to be judgmental because he was heavy. Fact is, he lied. He lied to her about who he is. He said he was Black Ops CIA, and he had to travel a lot, couldn't tell her what he did, and that his job was very dangerous, and that he had to, keep things from her to protect her. Yes, this, to an outsider, this appears to be totally outrageous, absolutely insane. Who would believe it? However, when you are emotionally detached and you are not in a relationship with someone that you've built trust with, that you've built rapport with, and have an emotional connection with, it's easy to say, I would never fall for that. However, if you are in a relationship with someone and you have those things, and that person tells you, this is what I do for a living, why would you question it? Because the bigger the lie, the less likely you are to question it. I mean, who would lie about such a thing? Who would tell you that they work for the CIA, Black Ops, as absurd as that sounds to us? Seriously, why would you make up something like that? Most regular people take things at face value until proven otherwise, because, it's super exhausting to go through life doubting and questioning and checking up on people when they say things about themselves. You want to think the best of people, however, the red flags do show up. You put them in a little pocket on the side here, and you say, okay, well, if another red flag shows up, I know what to do. And you just add up all the red flags, and then you take your count every now and then, and you say, okay, well, there's a lot of red flags here. What am I looking at? What is this? Is this person dangerous to me? Is this a bad situation? Is this a liar, a manipulator, a narcissist? Like, what am I dealing with here? And sometimes it's very hard to tell. The indicators are very subtle. Sometimes they're so outrageous, you think, well, why would they lie about something like that? And they know this because they've done it before, and they know exactly what they're doing. So if you're somebody who comes across celebrities, people with unusual jobs, you're in a situation where you are aware that there are all sorts of strange ways to live, this may not seem strange to you. It's easy for us on the outside to judge and to say, I would never fall for that. But if you're emotionally, psychologically involved with somebody and building trust with that person, and then they tell you this, and you don't see any reason why they would lie, you probably would fall for it, and you just don't know it. And the fact that you're saying judgmentally, I would never fall for that, you're probably going to be susceptible to falling for something like that. I mean, how stupid can she be? Seems to be a very common comment about this woman. How stupid can she be? Well, she's not stupid. She was very successful. She's very intelligent. She went to Wharton. to cast judgment on her as being stupid and naive for falling for this person. She was manipulated. She was drawn in. She was groomed. She was played with. This person knew exactly what to say. This person knew exactly what buttons to push because he knew her. He knew how to work her. This story is a go-to for these types of manipulating narcissists. So he said he had to travel a lot, and probably he wasn't traveling. Probably he was just leaving because he couldn't stand her, because narcissists hate people. And so also to keep up the facade that he was this black ops person, he had to leave every now and then to pretend he was on trips. He would stage grandiose presentations to prove that he had millions of dollars. First of all, he was stalking Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin was interacting with him, I guess because he thought he was funny. But if you're friends with Alec Baldwin and you see that he is interacting with this guy on a regular basis, you kind of think, well, do they know each other? I mean, the fact that she was friends with Alec Baldwin and didn't ask about his relationship with this guy is a little weird. He said he had tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, diamonds, what have you. He even showed her an envelope full of diamonds, which could have been fake, which probably were fake. He invited her to come to a meeting at a bank because he was house hunting and wanted to buy a multi-million-dollar home. And they went to see the bank, and he was going to purchase it, but the money never materialized. He had all of these emails to say that he had so much money. Then he also, which he probably wrote himself, then he took her to Tiffany's, and they went into the room with only super wealthy special people could go. So obviously he smooth talked his way in there and presented her with, oh, try this fancy diamond on, because he was trying to romance her with promises of engagement, romance her with promises of buying her a fancy home, romance her with this idea that he had a lot of money and trying to prove to her that he had a lot of money. So she would feel comfortable with giving him money. This is again another tactic of these types of narcissists. So she started to give him money, and he would berate her by projection into giving him money. He would ask for $10,000, $5,000, said, I just need some money really quick. All my funds are tied up, and I'll give it back to you. So she gave him several payments of thousands of dollars, and then eventually he gave her some money back, and it developed this sense of trust that she was going to get her money back. But then he kept demanding more and more money until she ended up giving him almost $2 million. And it was under the guise of he was going to get killed if he didn't present the money, and she needed to come into his world, and he needed to test her loyalty, and she had to go through all these tests to prove her worth. And he would yell at her and swear at her, and all these phone calls were recorded. He pretended that he was going to give her $2 million to pay off her debt for the restaurant. And so if they were married, there was no tax implications. And so they got married quickly, and she was caught up in the romance of it. But what I am getting from it is that really her inner guidance was telling her that this was wrong. But because she was suffering from cognitive dissonance and abuse and gaslighting and mental manipulation, she couldn't really gauge her emotions, and she couldn't really gauge what was going on. She was caught up in the abuse and couldn't think straight, and so how she was feeling was not aligned with what was happening and what she was agreeing to. But because she was caught up in this situation where she was basically allowing him to pull her strings, allowing him to manipulate her and tell her what to do, because it seems that she wanted someone to help her, to save her, and to protect her from the drowning situation she was in from her previous husband and being in debt. And this was her form of escape, because everything that he was doing, everything that he was presenting to her was about escape. You know, they were escaping into this world of espionage and thrills, and it was a complete departure from her normal life. Whether it was real or not, he was portraying it as if it was real. And he also made up people. He was trying to back up his story, so he presented this person who was allegedly his father, who backed up his story, probably not his father, probably some bum off the street he paid $20 for. And then he told her, again, typical tactic, he created a false email account, emailed her from this account saying that he was the IT person for their black ops and that she needed to hand over her passwords to her bank accounts and her emails so that they could secure her accounts because of the situation that he was in. So she did, and this guy, this IT guy, did not exist. He was fake. So yeah, she started to record his conversations, and they were very strange conversations. I mean, she would try to hold him accountable. She would try to say, well, where's my money? Can I get my money? And he would weasel his way out. He would get mad at her. He would project. He would say, you know, I thought you didn't care about money. She said, oh no, I do care about money. Why are you not in this? I thought you were in this. I thought you were devoted. I thought you were committed. Part of his manipulation tactic, she being in the vegan world, vegans are generally tied to the New Age movement, and so he started to bring in this New Age talk that he could make her and her dog immortal, but he was playing into the New Age philosophies of this is part of the test to basically to ascend. So playing on the ascension aspect of the New Age movement, and this was another reason why I felt that it was important to talk about, because a lot of narcissists are attracted to New Age religion and truth, partly because they feel like they don't fit in. They're not successful in the real world, so they can use it as an excuse not to be successful in the real world. They can use it to hide behind, to pretend that they are good people. They can use it as a way of conning you into making you think that they are working on themselves, doing the inner work, when they actually are not, and all they're doing is just reflecting back to you what you expect to hear, because they take in this information and then they just spit it back out at you. And so you think that if they're regurgitating this stuff, they must be learning something, they must be applying it to their life. But these narcissists are incapable of change. They're incapable of self-reflection. There's nothing inside. They're empty. There's a big void. And so they don't want to look at it. I mean, this works in every religion. There are plenty of people who adopt religious beliefs. They hide behind it to try to make them appear to be a better person than they really are, or they really feel that they are. And so they all say, see, I'm a Christian, I'm a good person, and all of these people like me. And normal people who are good people don't need to throw that in your face. They don't need to tell you this all the time. But these narcissists will tell you this all the time because they aren't. They need to convince you. The red flags were there that He lied to her off the bat. He love bombed her. He manipulated her. He conned her. He stole money out of her. He made up a story. He, abused her and gaslit her and totally confused her. And in the comments, in the public eye, saying there's no way she could be so stupid. There's no way that she could fall for something this ridiculous. It's so absurd. I can't buy it. I can't believe it. And so this would be another tactic used by a manipulative narcissist such as him, because if she goes to tell people that this is what's going on, who the hell is gonna believe her? You put yourself in her shoes for a second. What is she gonna tell people? First of all, he told her he works in Black Ops CIA, and she isn't safe if she tells people. So how can she possibly tell people? She doesn't want to drag them in if she's in this situation with this guy who's going to protect her. But if she goes to her parents and tells them, then she's dragging them into the danger zone, but he can't possibly protect her and them. If you're thinking this is real, because she is thinking this is real, otherwise she wouldn't be with him, because she'd think he was a lunatic, which he is. He is a lunatic. The thought of saying this to somebody, it sounds so absurd. There is no way that somebody's going to believe you. And yet you see it firsthand. This person is presenting evidence to you that this is what they do. Presented her with triangulated relationships of this IT guy and his father to back up his story. And yet if you go to tell somebody outside of this, they're not going to believe you. So what is she supposed to do? Who is she supposed to tell? This is probably why she didn't tell people in the restaurant about her relationship with this guy, because she didn't know what to tell them. It is hard for an outsider to believe that she would be stupid enough to fall for this, because as an outsider, you are not emotionally involved. So this again proves the point that if she told somebody that this was going on, they would never believe her. They would never think that it was true. They would tell her, hang on, this is weird. And this actually did happen, because her boyfriend, this guy, early on in the relationship, before they were married, called her restaurant, and her staff picked up the phone. And first of all, if this guy is supposed to be some smart con artist, why is he using a phone with display on it that shows that he has a different name? You can easily turn that off. So he calls the office with his cell phone, and it has his personal name on it, and it is different from the name that he told her was his name. And so the person who answered the phone was curious as to who this person was, because they'd never heard his name before, and searched this person's name on the internet, and up came a mugshot. Again, another reason why I think this is fake. You're not going to just find somebody's mugshot on the internet. If you're a celebrity, sure, but if you're a regular person, probably not. However, this person did a search, found a mugshot. He presented it to Sarma and said, what's up with this? He has a different name. He's been arrested. He's been in jail. And she sort of passed it off as, well, that was his past life. He's different now. Okay, but it's still a big red flag that he was in jail. It's still a big red flag that he didn't tell you his real name. The fact that she did not look into that, you would think as an outsider, is a little weird. As somebody who is subject to narcissistic abuse, who's entangled emotionally, they're not thinking straight, they have cognitive dissonance, they excuse things away because they need to figure out what is true and what is not. And so they end up telling themselves a story just to make sense of the bullshit this person is feeding them. What bothers me is the amount of criticism that people have on her, and they are saying that she is the perpetrator and she is the one who did all of this and created all of this. Perhaps to some extent there is some issues with her and her vulnerability and her need for escape and her need to believe what this guy was telling her from what I've seen so far, I haven't seen the last 2 episodes. From what I've seen so far, it does seem like a straightforward con artist manipulation. However, she reached out to him on Twitter, which is weird. Typically, the narcissist would reach out to the victim. Maybe he was actually targeting her and had seen Alec Baldwin had been making several comments about her restaurant and that he had a thing for her. And so he was targeting her through Alec Baldwin instead of going directly to her because, you know, he didn't know her. Let's think for a second that maybe she is the perpetrator and all of this is her machination. If you look at the scenario that so far in the first 2 episodes, she has reached out to this famous celebrity chef. And not only did she manage to get hired to work on his book, she managed to date him and build a restaurant with him. She did all of that from nothing. She had no experience. She had no reputation. She was not well known. She came straight out of school. And she was obsessed with this guy. And so she ends up getting into his life, taking over his world, and taking over his identity, so to speak. Because she ended up having the restaurant. She ended up having the celebrity life. He just disappeared. And then when he reached out to the investor and said, I can no longer work with her, maybe that was a call for help saying, she's crazy. I can't stand it anymore. It's her or me. I gotta go. But because he had the reputation for bad spending, he went. This is possible. And then when she was looking for an out, she saw this guy because she was, you know, secretly coveting Alec Baldwin, but couldn't go out with him anymore because he was not available. So she saw this guy interacting with Alec Baldwin, saw that Alec approved of him by interacting with him, and she preyed on him, and she brought him into her world, and she love bombed him. She thought that he was going to take her away from all of this. However, he didn't have any money. If her motive is that she's a manipulator to take people's money and take people's lives, she's not very good at it because she picked somebody who doesn't have any money and then somehow managed to get him to create this elaborate scheme of a black ops person who needed her to fulfill all sorts of tests, giving him money. She was getting money from the restaurant and using him as the excuse to take the money from the restaurant and siphon it out so that she could leave and then end up getting arrested, lose her business, and going to jail. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up at all. He has to be the manipulator and she is the victim. I don't really like how people are reacting to this, and they have no sympathy and they have no empathy for what she's been through and the harassment and the abuse, and no understanding of what gaslighting does to people, no understanding of what this kind of manipulation does to people. Blaming the victim is shameful. She was vulnerable to wanting to escape, vulnerable to wanting someone to save her because of the situation she was in. But does that make her a bad person? Does that make her the bad guy here? No, it does not. They can tell this story from the perspective of what was published in the media without her permission. But she cooperated with them and she participated in this documentary, and she had the opportunity here to paint herself as the victim, which she did. Again, a lot of people are having a hard time believing that, especially because she's successful, especially because she's attractive, she's intelligent. They think she should know better. Well, until you're in this situation, have some empathy and some consideration that you have no fucking clue what it is like to be a victim to a narcissist like this until you have been one. You don't know what hit you. And blaming the victim for it is shameful. So think twice before you start attacking somebody like her for falling for this stupid shit. Because it happens. It happens more than you know. Good-hearted people want to believe that most people are like them, that they are telling the truth unless proven otherwise, that they are just trying to get along in the world, doing their best to get along in the world. They do not jump to the conclusion right away that, oh, I'm dealing with a narcissist here, better be on guard. It's not your first go-to. You can't go through life wading through people and constantly questioning, is this person a narcissist? Is this person a narcissist? Are they out to abuse me? It will make you paranoid. However, you have to be aware that these people exist, and there are a lot of them, and there are more of them than you think, and they are dangerous. They are very dangerous. So, I'm going to leave it here, and I will pick it up on the other side of the other 2 episodes. Thanks for listening.